Fellas, ladies, you looking for lotions? You looking for beard oils? But unfortunately, everything you get from mainstream got chemicals in it and it's probably killing you? No problem, we got you. Go check out my people from Top to Bottom Hair and Skincare. That's Top to Bottom Hair and Skincare. www.top2bottom, BOTTU, the U is for unique, M.com. Tell them I sent you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Unfiltered Sports. It's another Thursday, and it's a great Thursday. It's trade deadline time in the NBA, which means front offices are lying, fan base are coping, and somebody definitely is being overpaid. But who's to tell? There is no filtered takes here on Unfiltered Sports. We're on the trade deadline edition today. So let's talk about who actually got better, who got worse, and who's just pretending so that way they can just fake it till they make it. So today, we're going to start off Unfiltered Sports with something we ended with last week. This weekend is Super Bowl Sunday, right? And so we talked about, who we thought was going to win the Super Bowl. I obviously would like to see the Seahawks destroy the New England Patriots. I think that this is a revenge matchup in the Super Bowl for them. I think if it comes down to the last 30 seconds of the game and they're on the 1 yard line, that they will not pass the ball, that they're going to run the ball up the middle to score that touchdown at the 1 yard line. They might even try tush push. Who knows? But I definitely think that the Seahawks are going to beat the Patriots this go around. You didn't get them on the first try, get them on your second try. If they got to go to a third try, I don't even want to watch it. That's how bad it's going to be. So we're just going to leave that part at that, right? But let's talk about that Pro Bowl, right? Because that Pro Bowl on Tuesday night was interesting. Because the Pro Bowl that I grew up watching, it was like an actual football game. Like you had your helmet on, shoulder pads on, like you had full out like tackles happening. Like I seen when Ed Reed laid hits out on Peyton Manning and whoever. Like it was just like Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, Brian Dawkins. You have who else was it on there? Was it Sean Taylor? I can't remember, but it was just a lot of hard hitting football going on in the Pro Bowl when I was growing up watching the Pro Bowl. Watching the Pro Bowl on Tuesday, flag football. And yes, you had players from every position drafted, but you had kickers out there not even kicking field goals. You had kickers out there catching the ball like a wide receiver, trying to throw the ball like a quarterback. Like the the Pro Bowl is just a joke nowadays. And that's the crazy part. Like we need to go back to reality. We need to go back to the way the game was played, where the Pro Bowl brought fans together for entertainment purposes to watch some electrifying football. Not to watch someone who is a wide receiver play D back in a flag football game, catch an interception, and then try to take it back for a pick six or whatever it may be. And then you got to look at the fact that there's different rules in flag football. Flag football, you looking at the fact that they got a, I think, 4 second count to get rid of the ball or they get sacked. And then it happened to Dak Prescott twice, where he was in the end zone and he held the ball for 4 seconds. And what happened? Safety. He got safety. It's crazy. It's really interesting that they decided to change the game to make it soft. Like I really just think that the game is soft. It is not what it used to be, and it's ridiculous. Like, why are we going back to being soft? Hard hitting football is where it needs to be at. Football back in the day, you look at Weapon X, Brian Dawkins, a legend in Philadelphia. it's amazing to see him play football and to hit the quarterback in an all-star game where he smack a quarterback and boom, laid him out. Or where he just picks someone up and just body slams them. That was football. Now you got people out there pulling a flag, and it's crazy. Thank you everybody for joining in though. That's in the chat. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's always a great feeling to have you guys join in on the comments to see the electrifying comments or whatnot out there. It keeps me going, it keeps me motivated, and it keeps the energy going. There is 2 lives on YouTube. One is going to be for your vertical view, and one is going to be for your horizontal view. So just be mindful of that part right there as well. But again, yes, football is just soft. Basketball is even worse, though. So, we're just going to transition back to basketball because the trade deadline is here. There's been some trades going on, and it's going to be crazy. It's like when we look at the fact that Chris Paul was traded from the Clippers to Toronto. And this is his retirement year. Like, this is supposed to be his retirement tour. And in the middle of your retirement tour, you got the trade. Like, that's crazy. I think that's a smack in his face just to trade him out of the blue. I don't know if he asked for that trade or whatnot. The other trade is James Harden. James Harden, he's out of there as well. He went to Cleveland. Now that's an interesting trade because no later than I seen James Harden going to Cleveland, I see a post about LeBron James talking to Cleveland to go back to Cleveland because he want to end his career where it all started, he said. So it's like, is LeBron James just jumping from place to place because he doesn't want to deal with adversity, because he doesn't want to handle his problems like an adult? Like, whatever beef him and JJ Redick got going on, they need to talk it out man to man. But it's crazy. Like, Cleveland is going to be stacked because let's think about this. If James Harden's down in Cleveland, LeBron's going to try to get over to Cleveland. His son, who's not that good and shouldn't be in the NBA, is going to try to get over to Cleveland now. Who's next? And when we talk about James Harden, I read something today that said that Kawhi Leonard asked James Harden why was he leaving? And one of the reasons that he stated was that every time they were on the floor together and he tried to run a play, it seemed like Kawhi Leonard was not there, focused in the game, and he wasn't communicating. If any basketball person that's playing the game knows Kawhi Leonard, they know that man is quiet. He don't talk. So, like, how can you fault him for not communicating? Want him to do sign language or something like that? Like, that's just ridiculous. That's crazy. But I really do think that that trade was a loss for Cleveland. It's going to help out the Clippers regardless because at this point they're just getting rid of the toxicity in the locker room. They're getting rid of players to free up cap space so they can bring in some young blood, some fresh legs. Another trade that really yeah, literally you just took the words right out of my mouth. Another trade that really shocked me that I mean really haven't heard much about this name recently because he was injured is Jared McCain, right? The Sixers started off on fire. Like, they were the team to beat. They were on a hot streak. They were winning game after game after game. At one point, they were undefeated and number one in the entire NBA. Now they're dropped down to number 6 in the Eastern Conference or even the NBA in general. I got to double check my stats here, but it's poor. Like, you are losing games to teams you should be beating, and it's just ridiculous. I think that they gave up Jared McCain was probably it was probably something that needed to happen. In my honest opinion, it was something that needed to happen in order to bring in fresh blood, right? Because if you look at it, you got the rookie Edgecombe, you got Maxi, you got Paul George, you got Embiid, right? You look at your bench, you got Drummond, you got Eric Gordon, you got Kyle Lowry, a bunch of like veteran players that are almost washed up. But the Sixers need to start bringing in players that can start running the floor, running the floor. I honestly think that the Sixers is an up-tempo team, and that if they don't bring in players that can run the floor with Edgecombe, with Maxi, a healthy Joel Embiid, and a healthy Paul George. The fact that Paul George decided to do some illegal substances and get suspended for 25 games is wild. And I don't know if he's trying to cover it up and say it was his mental health, because the last person on the Sixers that covered it up with mental health, uh, Ben Simmons. And he sat out game after game. He sat out a couple seasons. He's still out. Haven't played a game in the NBA and I don't know how long. But last I heard, he was trying to be a pro fisher. Maybe that might be something better for him. Maybe he should try golf as well. Something. But like, through everything that's happening in the trade deadline, with Giannis trying to be on the trade block, because Giannis is on the trade block. But I just heard a statement, or just saw a statement from the Bucks that said that they weren't pursuing any trades for Giannis in the trade deadline, and they were looking for other opportunities to trade him at the end of the season and so forth. But in my honest opinion, I think the Sixers, with that trade for Jared McCain, should have tried to use that for someone who can play the big position, to start rebuilding the team around Edgecombe and Maxi instead of Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is done. Like, I think he's done. If he can't stay healthy, he's done. Now, don't get me wrong. Give props to his doctor who kept his knee healthy to keep him in the game that long. He dunked twice in the one game and didn't hurt himself. Mind blown. Mind blown. I just think that's crazy, though. But let's hear your take on who actually won the trade deadline for the NBA. James Harden is washed, and I mean he's decent, but he's not great. I wouldn't want him in my locker room. That's all I'm saying. He's old, and if he was really that good when he was on the Thunder with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, guess what? They should have won the championship game. They should have won the finals. They should have won the finals. But what happened? After they lost the finals, who did they lose the finals to? Golden State. And where did Kevin Durant go? Golden State. And what happened? They won how many NBA finals back to back to back? All right. So we just gonna leave it at that, because James Harden, when he left, he thought he was gonna stay, and he went to the Rockets, and then he was doing okay down there on the Rockets, doing pretty well, honestly. But then what happened? A lot of lies. A lot of lies. The front office was lying. That's what happened. Then he came. Then he went to the Sixers, right? And what happened when he was on the Sixers? Because he left the Rockets to go to the Clippers, and then went to the Sixers. I'm just saying, like, he played on the Sixers for what, 2 years? It's a trend with James Harden, and the reason I say he's toxic in the locker room is because if things don't go his way right away, he starts playing different on the court. Right away, he starts doing something stupid on the court. And then it transfers over to practice. It transfers over to the media. It transfers over into the locker room. And then you start seeing this whirlwind of James Harden throwing a hissy fit as a grown man until he gets traded, until he gets his way. And he's doing this constantly over and over and over again. Not in my locker room. It ain't happening. That's all I'm saying. That's literally all I'm saying. James Harden, like I said, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he's a bad player, but he needs to change his mindset. If we talk in prime, and that's a tough one. If we talking PG before he broke his leg, or you talking PG after he broke his leg? Because if you talk about PG before he broke his leg, then I would say PG. But if you're looking at him after he broke his leg, after he like PG on the Pacers, then yes. If after he left the Pacers, no, I would pick James Harden 100%. So before he broke his leg, I would put PG over James Harden, and that's just my honest opinion there. Because the Pacers were a franchise that that was really building around PG, and the second that he broke his leg, he was never the same. The same thing happened with Derrick Rose when he got hurt. Like it just for some reason when people mess their legs up, they don't come back the same. But again, I would take James Harden if you talk about PG after the injury. Before the injury, I'm taking PG. But let's hear it in the chat, y'all. Who do you guys think won the trades for this so far for this trade deadline in the NBA? I mean, you got the Sixers out there who had some trades going. You had the Clippers out there with some trades going. I think the Bucks had some trades going as well. But let's hear it in the chat. Who do you think are some biggest wins out of this and biggest L's out of this trade deadline? Um, is this going to change some of these teams' mindsets and momentum for them in order to make a huge playoff run and to be a contender in the playoffs? And who gave up too much for a short-term rental? Do you think that James Harden is near the end of his career and is considered a short-term fix to a long-term problem? If LeBron James is at the end of his career, do you think he should stay in LA or should he go back to Cleveland and play with James Harden and finish it out there? And if so, do he bring his son with him? Let's hear it. You're going to have washed up James Harden and washed up LeBron James side by side of each other. And what's going to happen? It's going to be too many washed up people sitting on the sideline paying how much money to watch a game? Oh, I forgot about that trade, the Dallas Mavericks trade. I forgot about that trade. But would you say that the Dallas Mavericks won that trade or lost that trade? Because Kyrie, Cooper Flag, and AD never played one single match together. Was that a powerhouse move? A statement right there? What do you think? Excuse me. See, and to just hear some of y'all input in the chat, right? It's just interesting to think, right? Because if your biggest move was a second round pick that was swapped, congratulations, right? You played yourself, you played your team, you lied, you just subpar, right? But some GMs, they'll rather hit the refresh button on social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. They would rather hit that refresh button than to get out of there and make a trade. Scared money don't make money. Go out there and make a statement. Stop being scared. What's going on out the pit? Thank you for joining in. We were talking about the NBA trade deadline and some of the biggest wins out of the NBA trade deadline. Who do you think won the NBA trade deadline? Right? We talked about Jared McCain and the Sixers trade. We talked about James Harden being washed up and going to Cleveland. LeBron trying to go to Cleveland. We talked about now the Dallas Mavericks, their trade with AD as well. So a lot of good talk here, right? But again, these GMs will rather sit on their phones on social media than to be open and honest with some of these athletes out there and let them know what's really going on. Like, make a trade. Like, if they're not a good fit for your style and your system, go. They gotta go. They gotta go. Like, it's just simple. It's simple as that. I think there's gonna be a lot of chaos. There was something that I saw. I don't know if it's true or not. That because LeBron's coming to the end of his playing career, that he's going to try to go back to Cleveland and finish it all where he started at. So we'll see what happens from there. But I'm really really excited about this trade deadline because I'm a Sixers fan. I want to see how they're going to improve. I want to see them go for a big superstar. They like I said, they got rid of Jared McCain, but they could have won after somebody like Giannis. They could have won after somebody that's going to help make a statement. I would rather them build around VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey than to try to keep building around people that's going to keep getting hurt, like Paul George and Joel Embiid. Being as though Paul George is suspended for 25 games for smoking whatever he was smoking. Like, LeBron is a clown, and that's why every time I get on here, I'm going to troll him because he's just like he's a big baby, especially on the court. If he doesn't go his way, he's complaining and crying to the refs. And if he touches a ref, he never gets a technical foul. Like no matter what sports you're in, if you touch a referee, it's a flag. You're supposed to be ejected from the game. You're not supposed to touch the ref, but he does it all the time. Nobody really cares. But it's just funny to see that happen. But here's the question. Here's one of the questions like big questions of the day, right? That we got for you guys. Is it better to chase stars or to build chemistry for your team? Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Bronny James ain't got no skills. His younger brother is better than him. We're going to talk about that. In my opinion, I would rather build chemistry with a bunch of people who are subpar and build a dynamic team than to build around a superstar and chase that superstar. Because if you build that chemistry around your team, you're going to start building something and people are going to want to try to join your team. It's crazy. That's funny that you say that because, again, you say that about LeBron, but I remember watching this clip about Jordan when the ref called a foul for Jordan, and then he goes, "You sure, Jordan? I didn't see him have two hands. I didn't see him have two hands." So, as a ref, if you're not sure, why did you make that call? But because it was Jordan, he made the call. I just think it's funny, it's just really funny. But, we talk about building great chemistry, right? Because it's hard to beat a team that has great chemistry. And that is true. It is hard to beat a team that has great chemistry. But I want to point out a team, and I will never root for any team in New York because I dislike New York. But the New York Knicks has great chemistry. The Villanova Knicks has great chemistry. And I root for the Villanova Knicks because three of my favorite players that came out of Villanova plays for the Villanova Knicks. That's the only reason why I would mention them, talk about them, or anything, because they are building great chemistry over there in New York, right? Jalen Brunson now beat Carmelo Anthony for the number one player in franchise history for 40 plus games in Madison Square Garden at 11. By one game, he beat Carmelo Anthony. You got Jalen Brunson, you got Josh Hart, you got Mikal Bridges, you got Carl Anthony Towns. They are putting together a dynamic force over there at Madison Square Garden. It is crazy. But nobody wants to talk about the Knicks, right? But guarantee you, if the Knicks get that one missing piece, they win in the NBA Finals. Mark my words, if they find that one missing piece that they need, they are winning the NBA Finals. It's going to happen. It will happen. And this is true, right? When you have that chemistry, the game becomes fun. The game becomes better. It becomes electrifying. It becomes it becomes a vibe. It becomes a culture, right? You start seeing a lot of things happening. The players are working together, right? If the coach call a play, let's say for the Knicks, because we just talking about the Knicks, if the coach calls a play for Jalen Brunson, and everybody knows they're about to double team Jalen Brunson, what do you think Jalen Brunson is going to do? He's going to accept the double team, and we're going to get the ball to somebody else. Maybe we get it to Josh Hart. Maybe we get it over to Mikal Bridges, right? Maybe we get it down low to Carl Anthony Towns and see what he can do with the ball. But see, the thing is that when they build their chemistry and they're building that force over there, everybody's accepting their role. Everybody knows their role. And if they come out of the game, someone that comes in for them, they know their role. They know what they're supposed to be doing. But see, too many times we face this thing where people have to be a superstar. It's okay not to be the superstar because as you know your role, you do your job, you'll get your time, you'll get the spotlight, your name gonna be out there. You ain't gotta worry about it. People will talk about you, right? So why do you see another good team, right? Before I get to this next point, right? That I didn't even bring up was Golden State, right? When Golden State was making those finals runs and winning, right? They won with who? Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and it's just like that team right there. They were clicking on all cylinders. They knew what they were doing, and it's just very interesting to really see that they won that many championships when they built that chemistry and what Steve Kerr is doing over there. And quite frankly, I think it's very, very good to see that he's still going strong right now. And I think that he should be inducted into the Hall of Fame. You know, he's won NBA Finals with the Bulls as a player and as a coach now. So definitely get him into the Hall of Fame sooner rather than later. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see happen. While we're speaking of Hall of Fame, I think it's very funny too to see that Robert Kraft or Bill Belichick didn't get their nominations as a first round ballot into the Hall of Fame. So very interesting there. Yes, we do need to give Embiid a chance to help bring that championship over to Philadelphia. We do, and I'm not saying dismiss him right away, but we also need to be cautious, right? We got to be cautious about Joel Embiid because he is injury prone. Every single year that he's played with the Sixers, he has had some type of injury. So to err on the side of caution, we need to go out there and find someone else who plays the big role just as good as he does. Because look at what is it? Uh the Spurs. The Spurs was out there and they went and got somebody to play right next to Wemby. Same height. And I'm like that's crazy. But the Sixers need to do the same thing. They need to go out there and find someone to play at the same caliber level as Embiid when he's healthy? Here's a question, right? Does the star bring in championships or does the team bring in championships? Hmm. It's a great question because a lot of times we see here that there are teams who will build around that star thinking that, oh, I got this star, we're going to win a ring, we're going to win a ring, and then it don't happen. Let's look at LeBron when he went down to Miami, right? When LeBron went down to Miami, what happened? They didn't win the NBA Finals their first year together. They lost, and then they won back to back to back because they got to buy in. They got to build that chemistry. It's the team, not a sole star. Granted, there's some rare circumstances because you got Dwayne Wade, who he won a championship with Shaq on his team. But again, Shaq at that time, I wouldn't say washed up, but he was at the end of his playing career and he was ready to be focusing on something else. But like it's those rare occasions there in itself, right? Because basketball in itself, it's not 2K. Like it's just easy that you can just be one superstar and you can, um, you know, win a my player or road to whatever you want to call it, right? But you can't just stack your ratings and say, like, oh, well, my player is going to be overall 99 and this is what we're going to do. You can't do that with these NBA teams right now because if they are trash, they are trash. It is what it is. Because if you try to boost their ratings, you can't expect a parade to happen. But if you play to their potential and their talent and you build that chemistry and you work players in to complement people's weaknesses, that's when you start to build that chemistry and that's when you start to win and bring in those rings and bring those parades in as well. Bring Jimmy Butler back to the Sixers. I wholeheartedly agree that Jimmy Butler should have stayed with the Sixers and that he should have never been traded because if he would have stayed and the Sixers, let's just put it this way: if we look at the roster now, and if the Sixers kept Jimmy Butler, they got B.J. Edgecombe, Tyrese Maxey, a healthy Joel Embiid. I think the Sixers could make a decent run in the finals and to the finals and possibly win it. I think that could have been it. But Jimmy Butler's hurt now. He's a little bit older, and I think his season is just about over. And that nature right there, right? Um, but let's look at some teams here. Let's throw some teams out there in the chat that are okay with being average, subpar, mediocre, whatever you want to call it. Let's throw some teams out there. It could be football, it could be basketball, you name it. What teams are okay with being average? I got to hear this one. You really think the Knicks are average? I don't think they're average. I think they're slightly above average, but I don't think they're just like an average team. Right now, if we're looking at like just an average team, probably looking at like the Spurs, maybe, um, probably the Bucks, maybe Bucks slightly above average. I mean, teams that you really haven't heard from in a while, the Trailblazers, Utah Jazz, like just thinking about teams you really haven't heard from in a while, like those are teams that I'm thinking about. Like, man, they must be really okay with just being subpar and being around. Like, is their owner okay with just making the money, not making a run for the finals or anything like that? Like, I have like Detroit Pistons. Like the Detroit Pistons is like right there. They're on that line right there. Um, the Hornets, yeah, that's another one. The Hornets. I think that is a sorry about that. I think that's a funny take to see that they have a good team and that they might not win a championship game. We'll see. We shall see. Who else is out there? I mean, Miami's down there. They're still like relevant here and there. Clippers is over there. The Lakers are over there. I mean, you got the Mavericks down there. But like you hear the same teams being brought up over and over. And there's what, 32 teams in the NBA? So like that says a lot. And so I mean, the Knicks, I think, like I said, I think the Knicks are just slightly above average, but we talk about like the sorry about that again, guys. We talk about the Pistons, we talk about the Hornets, Miami, like some subpar teams or whatever. But I think that they'll get over it eventually. Um, are these franchises just are they committed to rebuilding, or are they just content with just being where they're at? The Vikings, the Jets. Jets to never win a Super Bowl. Buffalo Bills. I could keep going with football. It's just, but basketball, I don't know. Just the NBA to me is just going down in general. I don't think it's like I said. It's like pro sports is not the same as it used to be, but it's all changing. AI has changed a lot. COVID has changed a lot. NIL has changed a lot. So I get it. I understand. We got to adapt and we got to learn and grow from it. So we'll see what happens from there. But is their front office right plan to just see what happens, or are they just afraid to go out there and make a difference and make a statement? And I think I honestly think a lot of people in the front office, they are just trying to tell you things that you want to hear instead of things that you need to hear. Forget your feelings. Your feelings are going to get hurt one way or another. So we're going to see what happens from there. Right? But with that being said, guys, I really, really, really appreciate you guys for joining in this week's episode of Unfiltered Sports, right? Where no filter is where we're at. We have no filter takes. If your team didn't make a move in the trade deadline, if your team's okay with being subpar and not trying to win a championship game, then I think the front office needs to reconsider a lot of decisions here, right? But don't worry, the couch in April is still very comfortable. You're locked in here with Unfiltered Sports. Let's go, dogs. Y'all have a great night, and until next time.
Fellas, ladies, you looking for lotions? You looking for beard oils? But unfortunately, everything you get from mainstream got chemicals in it and they're probably killing you? No problem, we got you. Go check out my people from Top to Bottom Hair and Skincare. That's Top to Bottom Hair and Skincare. www.top2bottom, BOTTU, the U is for unique, M.com. Tell them I sent you.